What's up, Wang Nostalgia? Dave here in our podcast. What's going on in pop culture right now? We got a bevy of new things to discuss once again. Of Ari Aster's new film, Eddington, very polarizing, a lot to talk about there. Tyler Creator's surprise new album, Don't Tap the Glass, and a trio of K-pop releases, Tomorrow Together, Jackson Wang, WayV, a lot to talk about. Make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod, see links below. Get the best of 2025 Spotify playlist link below. Let me know it's good, and let's get into it. What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Tomorrow Together's fourth album, The Star Chapter Together. This is the follow-up to the previous Star Chapter, Sanctuary. I believe this is the third or fourth of these chapter series. I gotta say, the TXT album and EP names are pretty confusing, hard to keep these narratives straight. Also, calling this one the Star Chapter Together, when Together is already in their name, it's a bit much. However, TXT, as people know at this point, they're about to embark on their fourth world tour because they're one of the most stable, consistent, reliable K-pop groups over the last, half decade plus at this point. I didn't really care for the Star Chapter Sanctuary all that much. I thought it was fine, but kind of unspectacular, nothing too great about it. I think TXT for me has very much been an up and down group in terms of releases, where there's stuff I like quite a bit, I think is really high level, and then stuff I think that's just kind of average. However, Tomorrow Together's fourth album, The Star Chapter Tomorrow, is definitely one of their upswing records. I think this album is very consistent. Almost all of the songs I really enjoyed. There's just kind of a propulsion to a lot of these songs. They just really take you through. The beats in general are nice, but the TXT singing is, I think, really the highlight here. It's, I think, a lot catchier, a lot more melodic, a lot of good harmonies, stuff I wasn't necessarily expecting to the degree you get on this album. While I don't think this is the catchiest TXT has ever been, this is all still pretty solid, pretty easy to revisit. The group is coming across as very confident with this release, whereas I thought the last record was a bit more uninspired, a bit more simple. This, though, I think is a lot more involved. The first song, Upside Down Kiss, I really like that bass drum, the way it loops. It's a really great start to the song. Then you have that synth drop in, this harmonizing chorus, really grabs you right away. Pretty catchy. Lyrically a bit more explicit than I was expecting from TXT as well. That upside down hook, though, I think is just fine. That's the only thing that holds me back on this song. I do like the second verse with the rapping, the call and response specifically. I think that sounds good. Beautiful Strangers. I think the drums are a bit more anonymous this time around. They stand out more on the first song, a bit more. Kind of just washed out to a degree I don't really care for. However, the beat builds up to a very big chorus, a bigger chorus than the first song, and the singing is very expressive. I think it really helps keep the song going. Ghost Girl, very noticeable production shift here. The snares, the keys really stand out. And the chorus, I think it follows suit in terms of being a shift. You have this raspier voice on the verses as well. This brief Daft Punk-esque auto-tune on the outro. Cool song for sure. Sunday Driver, I think the vocals stand out here because they're more of a higher register than they had been to this point. Also, this melodic guitar line that's very summery, sounds nice. Dance With You, I think the guitar line here is great alongside that kick drum. That deep voice, Wanna Dance With You line, I think really sticky, really good. The drums shift, get the higher register singing in the second half. Pretty solid song. And to back it up a little bit, Upside Down Kiss and Beautiful Strangers are group tracks, but then everything else from Ghost Girl onward, these are all solos from each of the members. And I think that's what's kind of cool about this album is you get a lot of different stuff, kind of reminiscent of the most recent Stray Kids album, just for the wide variety that you're getting, solo song to solo song. Take My Half, it's literally the first slow song on the release, but you have these big drums in the chorus, which I enjoyed. It's a clear highlight to me on this album has to be Taeyeon's Bird of Night. This one is kind of wow for me, honestly. Really twinkly piano fits the singing. The strings start to swirl, beat progresses, get bass drum on the chorus, and there's just like a really great harmony moment. Like I think vocally is just very impressive singing. Really enjoyed that one. And then the last track, which is the group once again, you have Song of the Stars. Nice drums once again. I really like the chanting on the vocals. So yeah, this comes across to me as, I guess, more in line with like the Minisode 3 album from last year. But like I said, and as a non-Korean speaker, I have a hard time with the TXT narratives that they're communicating, but this sounds so much better than the Star Chapter Sanctuary. Like, I wouldn't think they were connected at all, because like the beats are pretty different. But yeah, let me know, what do you think of the Star Chapter Tomorrow? Do you agree it's a step up for the group? What do you want to hear from them next? Let me know. And then for more music reviews, more K-pop reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of WayV's 7th mini album, Big Bands. WayV, of course, the NCT subunit, the Chinese-focused subunit at that. My favorite of all the NCT outputs. Just talked about this recently with the NCT Dream release we just got. Of course, WayV member 10 released a great solo album earlier this year. And I'm remiss to not mention that their last release, Frequency, from November of 2024, I unfortunately missed it due to like the holiday release time for it. But I loved that record. One of my favorite K-pop albums of the year. High Five, Twist, Filthy Rich, great songs. And I've kind of come to the realization that WayV to me is just the mode of NCT that hits the best for me, that gives me the songs that I like the most, to put it simply. And of course, excited to hear something new from them once again. And WayV's 7th album, Big Bands, is exactly what I was waiting for. I think all of these songs are really good. I think the bangers here, which is most of the songs present, are really up-tempo, really fun, very energetic. I think the raps are really good, nice tight flows, and the beats just really propel you throughout all of these songs. Title track, Big Bands, lots of horns. It just kind of grabs you right away, but I think all the WayV guys have really nice presence and attitude throughout this, and even on the slower songs towards the end of the track list, the beats are still quite lively, quite propulsive. It's a really successful release, and I think one of the best K-pop group albums that I've heard this year. You know, with that title track, Big Bands, that bounce is just so immediate, just grabs you right away. I think that the guys go really hard. The flows are nice. I also like, and they do this on multiple songs, the way they shift into singing, going in and out of the hip hop. It's very seamless. The beats are able to match, both modes of delivery in that regard. Verse 2 also noticeable because they kind of throw in some saxophone, add some horns as the song progresses. It's a really fun track. Ice-T, the next one, I also like quite a bit. Very rhythmic beat, lots of layers. There's like a bass undertone, but lots going on with that beat. But I think it all really kind of comes together. It's very nice. Whoa, bouncy once again. Great hook, very, very catchy. I love those group vocals all together. The drum kit in general, I think, is just kind of going dumb with this one. Really fun flow again here with verse 1. Good mix of rap and singing once again. Beat continuing to carry you through the song. Just a lot of momentum on these early tracks here. And I love the way this song kind of changes as it begins to, wind down with the hold up, wait a minute group chants and whatnot. It's very lively music. Sad Eyes, this is the first song without any rapping, but between that guitar line with that kick drum, it's still very lively, up-tempo music. And I think the good chorus is good once again. The higher notes, very noticeable. And then lastly, you have Your Song, which is definitely another downshift, but even then, I think the singing is very nice. The harmonizing of the group really comes together. And then, of course, you get the alt Korean version of Big Bands once again. So at this point, WayV, that's 2 in a row, 2 as good of a mini album, as good of an EP as you can kind of make, in my opinion. Let's get a full length here. Let's get another longer record, because I think WayV has room to grow. I feel like this is great stuff, and they should be a more popular version of NCT than they currently are, in my opinion. Let me know, though, what you think of NCT's 7th mini album, 7th EP, Big Bands. What you like most about it? And for more music reviews, more K-pop reviews, subscribe. I'll see you next time. What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with the review of Magic Man 2, the latest solo album from Jackson Wang. Of course, Jackson, one of the most high-profile members of GOT7, now an established independent K-pop act after they exited their contract a few years ago at this point, and they've seemingly rebooted the group while clearly being a group of guys that have progressed in their career and have a lot of other ambitions outside the group. And Jackson has, for a few years now been at it as a soloist as well, with a fruitful partnership with 88 Rising, and he's promoting this album pretty extensively here in the States, going on Zane Lowe, doing some other press like Wired and whatnot. You don't see that super frequent, from like high profile, like mainstream press from K-pop or someone who's K-pop adjacent. I wouldn't really describe Jackson's solo work as K-pop necessarily, but of course he is someone who came out through the traditional system, and there's a ton of overlap with his fan base, obviously. But yeah, Jackson Wang, I really enjoyed that first album, Magic Man, from 2022. I think it really impressed me as a clear, statement of solo identity and musical differentiation compared to what you expect from GOT7, which is, of course, a good group in their own regard. And I think songs like Below, songs like Cruel really grabbed me, like his use of guitars. It was really flashy music that I quite enjoyed, and honestly, quite a contrast from some of his other like solo hits, like LMLY or 100 Ways. The introduction of those guitars I think was really noticeable. And it's been a few years, obviously, since 2022. Jackson has talked about taking like a full year off from entertaining purposes and whatnot. That being said, of course, the GOT7 comeback earlier this year I quite enjoyed. Shout out that song Python, one of the best K-pop singles of the year. So he's been around in 25. And Magic Man 2 is now here. Jackson Wang's third solo album, Magic Man 2, is a pretty stark departure from the first Magic Man from 3 years ago. We're really lacking the in-your-face bangers that he topped that album off with, namely Blow and Cruel. He's not really going down that road this time around. This is a lot more R&B. This is a lot more of a mood piece. His singing is a lot less flashy this time around. It's a lot of very breathy vocals. It's a lot of more understated production. It's a lot of, lyricism first, and you kind of got to sit with the music. I'm not the biggest fan of this direction from Jackson, who obviously has established himself long ago as a really compelling entertainer. There are some exceptions, though. I think the song Access is a really fun, bouncy song. Buck has a really fun music video, very lively drums on that song. A lot of the other tracks, though, I had some issues with, unfortunately, and I'm a bit let down because I really liked the first Magic Man. First song, High Alone, which was a single, you kind of have these like chamber keys with this reverb. It's kind of like an epic intro, and then he gives you like baby voice vocals to start, which was certainly unexpected. Then, of course, the normal voice pops in, gets some snares. Is this a song that it's a bit more involved than traditional intro, but not quite like a fully formed song at the end of the day? Not for me. You have this subtle snare and this torch singing from Jackson, which is kind of a common theme on Magic Man too. Just not the most lively music. Access, as I said, I love the way he glides with those vocals. That kick drum, very nice, really bounces you along. I think the chorus on this song, it's just a bit breathy. I think it's just okay. If the chorus was a bit tighter here, I think this would be a really great track. But the verses, I really enjoyed still. Buck, I like that drum pattern. I like the feature collab with Delete Ensange. Kind of cultural mix here. His flow is a nice contrast to Jackson. This music video is pretty cool. I like the dancing in it. But it's still like that understated delivery. The vocals are not super flashy from Jackson, so it's like a song that like is in like, third gear when it could be in sixth gear, One of the other singles, GBAD, Gotta Be a Dick. This one is fine. I guess the hook is kind of amusing. I like that chanty outro, but it's also just kind of mid-tempo again. Hate to Love, I enjoy that funky bass line on it, and I think his singing is a lot more expressive on this, and it grabs you a lot easier. It has a nice transition into one of the interlude songs, One Time. The song Everything, really just a piano ballad. Again, the vibe is kind of low at this point. Dear, a nice interlude, definitely more of a family focus here. And then it kind of goes out with, I guess, a little bit of intrigue with Sophie's Ricky, which has some noticeable acoustic guitar once again, obviously not nearly as noticeable as what you got in the first Magic Man. And then Made Me a Man, kind of a whatever closer. I enjoyed the drums on it, but yeah, kind of at a loss with what this sounds like, to be honest. It's just not really what I was hoping for. I mean, again, Jackson's talked kind of at length about this being the music he needed to make and him feeling creatively refreshed after taking some time away and really diving in and learning a new musical process with the support of 88. That's all great. I support all of that, but it's just not really music for me this time around. What did you think of Jackson Wang's third solo album, Magic Man 2? Did you like it more than me, or were you let down like me? Somewhere in between, let me know. And for more music reviews, more K-pop reviews, more K-pop adjacent reviews like this, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with the review of Tyler, the Creator's 9th album, Don't Tap the Glass. This is Tyler's follow-up to Chromacopia, which just came out last fall, and this is a surprise release from Tyler, the least amount of notice he's ever given for a project. No pre-release single at all either. And because of all that, when I first heard about Don't Tap the Glass, I was defaulting to assuming this was more of a, deluxe reissue of an album, the way the Bake Sale was actually just the deluxe version of Call Me If You Get Lost from a few years ago. But no, turns out Don't Tap the Glass is a very fully formed Tyler album that is quite different from Chromacopia. Of course, Tyler's Chromacopia, he's currently on tour for that album. That album hasn't even gone through the Grammy voting yet because it's still so recent. And, I think since that album, you had Tyler make a lot of noise with his flip of Kendrick's Hey Now into That Guy, which was great. He had a big feature on Clips' POV just a few weeks ago. Of course, again, he's on a big arena tour right now. Tyler, the Creator, people know him. He's one of rap's most eclectic, but also biggest stars that we have. And it's pretty awesome, again, to see him get as far as he's gotten, given his Odd Future beginnings. Tyler, the Creator's 9th album, Don't Tap the Glass, is a great success. This is a really good happy medium for Tyler's strengths as an artist. You have this intricate, layered production that still sounds great to listen to song to song. Varied vocal performances that we've come to expect from Tyler, different flows, tones, personas, different styles of rapping and singing and everything in between. It's interesting and detailed music that doesn't grate or push you away with its quirks or its, distorted stylings. Tyler's been so experimental and he's given us so much. And this feels like a distillation of a lot of those things that he's come to do so well. Making a dance-forward album designed to make you move, and most importantly to me, rapping a lot on the album, not doing as much singing as he's done in recent works. It's a big highlight to me. I really enjoyed this one. Frankly, I want to listen to this more than I want to listen to Chromacopia. Is Chromacopia more interesting lyrically? Yes, but I think Don't Tap the Glass has more fun songs, in my opinion. And that dichotomy is what makes Tyler so great, because he has such this of a wide-ranging discography that can do and give you so many different feelings and vibes. But this is really in line with what I like from Tyler these days. The first song, Big Poe, which was actually in snippet form on the promotional website that came up for this album, is the only thing you really got to hear in the lead up to it. Had this electronic auto-tune vocals. I was vaguely getting Pussycat Dolls Buttons as a sample reference for the beat. It's not quite the same, but it's immediately where my head went. Very similar. I think if anything holds this song back, I think the hook is just kind of middling. But it's fun to hear Tyler really going in on these verses. I think this will be a really eclectic song live, especially because verse 3, you get Pharrell. Pharrell, he sounds underwater on here, but it's good to hear, Skateboard P rapping again. In terms of how it sounds, I would not be shocked if he actually recorded this at the Louis Vuitton office. But it's cool to hear Pharrell on a Tyler record. Of course, Pharrell, the biggest inspiration point for so much of what Tyler does, both musically, but also in terms of fashion, just being a celebrity in general. Obviously, a huge reference point, and it's cool to see them link up for obviously because you know how much it means to Tyler. You also have the Busta Rhymes sample with the jump on the bridge. And then even get another Pharrell verse towards the end of the song. So pretty cool. Like overall, I'm pro the song. I just wish the hook was a little bit better. Sugar on My Tongue. This beat kind of reminds me of like OG like 80s 90s workout videos for whatever reason. More melodic from Ty, giving that sung hook. Very glitzy production on that chorus. Sucker Free. I think the chorus, the way it sounds, the way it's sung, is very like MGMT to me. But I like these rapping verses once again. I think a lyric that longtime fans will really appreciate. Odd Future Wolfgang, all the bros in here. God, if we ever got an Odd Future reunion of some kind, OF Tape Volume 3, man, that'd be something, right? Obviously, some of the OF guys have been featured on Tyler Works from here and there, like Damogenesis, for example. We know he's cool with most of the guys at this point. But man, if the Odd Future guys were ever actually in here again, that would be a special time for rap. Next up, you have Mom and Them, which is only like a minute long. Gives you this like ominous, like ticking time bomb bell type sound. Tyler's voice very pitched up. Have these like distorted sounds like dropping in and fits and starts during verse 1. Song's interesting for a 1 minute song, I guess. And then that ticking time bomb vibe transitions right into Stop Playing With Me, albeit with a different tone. And then you get a total switch up into this very true dancey beat, as we were promised. And you have these like typewriter sound in the background, either a typewriter or a machine gun. I couldn't really tell. Tyler, though, rapping very hard in the verses. The hook, though, again, a little slight for me. But he does this like fun like back and forth with himself with different voices and like personas. I really enjoy when he does that just because he's so good at it. Ring, ring, ring. I think this beat's very fun. Obviously, a phone ringing is present here. Not my favorite type of Tyler singing overall. Not really my vibe necessarily. More of an understated rap flow as well. I think the second verse, though, the flow is a lot catchier alongside those drums. Don't Tap the Glass, the track, and Tweaking, a 2-track, 1 song type deal here. I think this one's really awesome. I couldn't quite place it, but it sounded like xylophone maybe with hi-hats or something. Flow very tight. I think the hook a bit too repetitive for me. The way it restarts, though, with Tweaking, I actually really enjoyed it. You get the synthesizer, then a new flow from Tyler once again. Really fun track overall. Has a lot going for it. Don't You Worry, Baby. You have actually some featured singing once again here. And then Tyler's vocals, though, drowned out by the synths. I just didn't love the mix on this, especially when you combine that with a repetitive hook again. I think it's probably one of, if not the weakest song here for me. I'll Take Care of You. Again, some more featured, female vocals here. Really understated song. It's just the hook, honestly. Nothing special for me as well. And then lastly, you have Tell Me What It Is. Drum tempo, I think, is really dope here. Tyler singing very Flower Boy-esque when it comes to Tyler singing. So I guess you could call that like early Tyler singing, or the first time he really did it in with much substance. That's where I got to. So yeah, like I don't think this is an album with grand aspirations. Tyler has said as much. There's no narratives, there's no deeper concept or anything like that. This is just like, as he's been talking about it, positioning an album to make you move. And I'll be curious how quickly he incorporates all this stuff into the Chromacopia tour, for that matter, because a lot of these songs are going to sound great live and do their job of making you move when you hear them in person. Overall, though, I think the album is really successful, and yeah, man, you can't pin Tyler down. You cannot predict what he's going to do. Dropping an album while he's in the middle of a tour from his previous album, who knows with Ty. But it's always interesting, and it's usually always very high quality as well, surprisingly. Let me know, what did you think of Tyler's 9th album, Don't Tap the Glass? Where are you at with it? Do you like it more or less than Chromacopia? Let me know. And for more music reviews, more rap reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up, Mike Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Ari Aster's Western, satirical, black comedy. This has a lot going on film, Eddington, starring Joaquin Phoenix and Pedro Pascal. Also a bevy of other notable actors: Deirdre O'Connell, Emma Stone, Michael Ward, Austin Butler, Luke Grimes. This film, of course, is the 4th feature film from Ari Aster, who's one of the most exciting and, celebrated and unique, filmmakers of the current, directing class at this point. Of course, his Collaboration with A24 continues with this film, following Hereditary, Midsommar, and Beau is Afraid. Of course, reuniting with Joaquin Phoenix following Beau is Afraid, which was quite the expression of insular feelings from Ari, a film that had a lot to it as well, both good and bad. Eddington is certainly a much more conventional film than Beau is Afraid. Also a very big film with a lot to it, actual set pieces and action. This is a guy who's earning himself, bigger budgets and whatnot, more trust from A24. And following this film premiering at Cannes, it's now here. And of course, the logline with Eddington is the main reason why this film is polarizing and is certainly gonna, have varying takes on it, is that Eddington takes place in May 2020. This is a film explicitly about the early days of the COVID pandemic and what it was like to be in that situation in this fictional town of Eddington, New Mexico. Ari Aster's Eddington is unsurprisingly a lot. When you're taking a film and setting it in the midst of the early days of COVID and making the themes of the movie explicitly about what it was like to be in that time in America, you're going to ruffle some feathers. And this is certainly a film that I think takes on a lot. Foregrounding COVID and the murder of George Floyd front and center in its story, its characters reacting to those events. This film has some grand aims, and there's a lot of things that it succeeds with and a lot of things it just does not give enough time to, does not treat with enough depth, despite being quite a long movie. Joaquin Phoenix gives a great performance as the sheriff who begins to kind of lose his grasp on what's important in life. It's a complicated movie, but I got to applaud it for the ambition that it's putting on display and making something so pointed and so explicitly about a very charged time. It takes a lot of guts. He certainly goes there with a lot of different threads. Now, if you look at the film, obviously there's so many characters, right? You have Joaquin Phoenix, who's Eddington Sheriff Joe Cross, and he eventually ends up running against the mayor of Eddington, Ted Garcia, played by Pedro Pascal, because Joe sees himself as a antidote to Garcia's enforcement of mask mandates. Of course, this is May 2020. Sees himself as, kind of speaking for the common man. And, it's a framing that's, very familiar and whatnot. And I think what's interesting about this movie is, our protagonist is Joe, and we're spending so much time with Joe as you see these various, kind of microaggressions affect his life, and all these things compound, right? The general pressure of COVID, his wife, played by Emma Stone's incredible susceptibility to QAnon and online conspiracy mongering, and her focus on that in lieu of any kind of maintaining a kind of relationship with him. All these things in the beginning, right? The general pressures of COVID and lockdown and things like that. And then you basically throw a grenade on the storytelling and where the characters are when, of course, George Floyd happens, in 2020, and Joe's presence as a police officer is also called into question, not to mention his feelings about COVID and everything, right? This movie's introducing a ton, right? You have Joe's colleagues at the force. There's two other, deputies, two other police officers, played by Luke Grimes, a white man, and Michael Ward, a black man. Unsurprisingly, Michael's identity as a black man and his identity as a black police officer is called out, right? This movie keeps adding on things, and it makes a point, I think, of showing things that feel very 2020, right? All the protests against police brutality and views on what to do about that and how to handle police department and funding of the police and things like that, right? There's a lot of things tackled on. I think if there's a criticism I have of the movie, right, because it's supposed to, and it's trying to highlight what it was like to be an American back then, right? And our susceptibility to crumble and the humanity goes away, right? It's positioning, Joe as someone who doesn't really care about COVID, and that comes back to bite him when he gets COVID in the movie, right? And then you put that against Ted Garcia, someone who's, masking but, not immune to the issues with masking and still gathering and the, not being completely COVID safe, but COVID safe enough. And, is there a middle ground there? Is there a performative aspect, right? A lot of things that are pretty familiar from our recent past, right? I think what I kind of struggled with part of this movie is like, as Joe descends into madness, basically, and gets very frantic, and there's just a lot of threads in the movie, right? That not all of them are paid off to the same degree, but despite all of that, like, you're never watching Joe as like a likable protagonist, especially once he commits some murders in the movie, right? But like, the movie doesn't really, I think, have nearly as pointed a comment of like Joe's side of things, right? Like, it makes kind of a mockery of all the people protesting, right? You have Ted Garcia's son, who's kind of cozying up to Michael's ex-girlfriend. Was it Sarah? What was her name? Who's very into the protesting, right? And like, it makes a point of like calling out the white people, getting on the high horse and dying on the cross, if you want to view it in that lens, right? It makes a point of like trying to laugh at that, but it doesn't really laugh at like openly spreading COVID, which was killing lots of people at the time. Like, I feel like it almost yada yadas like the other side of the coin with this, and I guess that makes some sense because it's the Joe Cross POV for the movie. But I as a result, I found a lot of it's like retrospective, like, see what happened to us type navel gazing. I feel like a lot of that was like kind of half baked. And again, you're watching Joe like make a fool of himself as he tries to run for mayor with horrible campaign tactics and using his police officer underlings to run his campaign and make his signs and stuff, and like, doesn't paint Joe in a good light. And obviously, once you watch him commit completely unfounded murders, it kind of descends. But then you have the other side of things, right, where there's like an actual like instance of like Antifa violence as Eddington becomes a more national flashpoint, and we had this kind of wild Act 3 shootout that is very well filmed and really engaging, but I felt like had almost no narrative heft to it. Like, to me, the movie like runs out of gas a lot at the end. It's 2.5 hours long. Beau's Afraid was also quite long, but this one is like it has like 3 endings, has a coda after that big shootout, and the coda, I don't know how you're supposed to feel about it necessarily. Like, there's, I don't know. This is a movie that like I chuckled at. I appreciated what was being done. There are just some things that I just feel like could have been done with more depth. Like, you think about Emma Stone's role in the movie, Austin Butler's role in the movie. It's pretty thin. They're really ancillary characters in support of the Joe storytelling, and Austin Butler as this QAnon shaman type analog, I guess you could say. He's very good, very charismatic as a kind of snake oil salesman, leader of troubled people type. Overall, I guess the movie's handling of like the racial dynamics going on, it's heavy-handed to say the least. I just don't know if there's quite enough depth to it. Things really escalate for a while, and after you get to like second half of Act 2, it's just a ton of plot, right? So it's a messy film. It's a film with a lot of components. And again, I think it's ambitious. I think it's very well constructed. Pedro Pascal, the guy's everywhere, as we keep talking about, right? Fantastic Four First Steps, Eddington, Materialists, Last of Us Season 2, Gladiator 2, Last Fall. The guy has been in, 5 incredibly high-profile things in the last 8 or 9 months or so. This, though, like Materialist, is a supporting role from Pedro, which makes a lot more sense once you've seen all the things he's been in. This is not a lead role from him. And I think he's very charming and good as a politician that definitely has some confidence to him and is not without his own faults, as a father, as a mayor. But yeah, I think he's good as that. But at the end of the day, it's the Joaquin show. And yeah, I mean, Joaquin at this point, it's never bad, right? He just keeps hitting it out of the park. And even if he's in only like so movies or like B+ movies, like a Come On, or whatever, his performances are always great. And this is another great performance from him as Joaquin really kind of bears it all. There's a really fun callback to Beau is Afraid at the very end of this movie in the coda, which I won't spoil, but if you've seen that movie, once you see something at the end of this film, it'll remind you of Beau, which is fun. But yeah, I think Joaquin as Joe is, I think, really convincing as a kind of, man of the people type who has a really kind of whataboutism focused line of thinking and kind of spiraling into spreading of, lies about others, if you could call it that, and stuff as the campaign kind of descends. A lot to the performance as his character really, grows. And yeah, this has been a really rambling review for me because I think it's kind of a rambling movie. Certainly worth seeing. I think overall it's more consistently effective and more, frankly, probably more thought-provoking than Beau is Afraid, because this movie has so many thoughts, and again, not all of them work to the same degree, but there's so much to this movie, and of course there's so much familiar to it because it's about current events, or recent events rather, that everyone knows well, mainstream events and whatnot. So yeah, shout out Ari Aster, man. This movie's not gonna open big at all. This is gonna open in the single digits, mid-single digits. Not gonna make a ton of money, just like Beau. He made a good amount of money with Hereditary and Midsommar. Now these are two like movies for him, right? So I'll be curious like what Ari's next budget looks like. The A24 seems very happy with this relationship. They didn't have to greenlight Eddington after Beau is Afraid made very little money, but they did because he's a great person to work with. You want to keep him in the stable. But yeah, who knows what he does next? But the guy is clearly going all over the place. I mean, this is effectively like a neo-Western. That's like the framing of this movie. We don't really get a lot of those. This one certainly is convincing as such. One thing I would have liked more of in this movie is more of the local Native Americans, the Pueblo. I would have liked more of the Pueblo, right? Eddington, the city, is uniquely positioned alongside native land, and there's different laws and rules about when things like crimes take place on the native land versus on normal American land, right? United States of America land. That, and then obviously there's the various Pueblo figures we meet, almost exclusively just the law enforcement. There was more there that I would have appreciated. I think the movie at one point has a really great like cat and mouse element to it, as the crimes, the murders that happened, will Joe get away with them or not? And the Pueblo detective is starting to piece things together. Really liked how all that went. It's just a question, I think, of the movie's priorities, right? And like it starts to really kind of lose the plot a little bit as the plot gets out of control. So yeah, let me know, what did you think of Eddington? It's a movie that's going to have a wide range of reactions, and it's certainly a movie worth revisiting, worth thinking about, worth taking different approaches to, because it has that much to it. I'll be very curious to see how the discussion continues, though. Let me know what you thought. And for more movie reviews, subscribe. I'll see you next time. All right, that's going to do it for the pod this week. Next week, of course, we have Marvel's Fantastic Four, The First Steps. A lot riding on that movie. We'll talk about it all. We also have the new Netflix film, Happy Gilmore 2, of course, starring Adam Sandler. Curious to see how that goes. And then we'll see what else comes out. And it's a little quiet for new releases this part of the summer, so I might be catching up on some stuff I've missed. So we'll see. Make sure you subscribe. YouTube.com/nostalgiapod, Linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See links below. Get the best of 2025 Spotify playlist linked below. Let me know it's good, and I'll see you next week.